Thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring today's video.
So we have got this morning, guys, what can only be described as a true winter wonderland. Now things are good now as you're joining me on this wonderful winter's morning. But let me tell you this, last night after I left yous, if you watched last week's video, things took a turn for the worse with the weather. The snow started coming down heavy and I got snowed in. This is where I pulled over. You've seen it now. I thought I'd get myself pulled over off a main road that they're likely going to grit, which you can see that they have, and just be done with it. I had to stay here. The roads were getting bad. I've not got proper tyres on this van, no snow tyres. I was sliding all over the gaff and the nerves were jangling. I'll admit to you, the nerves were jangling. So yeah, we got snowed in here last night and overnight it was -10, which is just madness, but the van held up an absolute treat. I'd like to think it's testament to all the work I put in with the insulation and that. I had the diesel heater going, it was well cosy. But yeah, all of that heavy snowfall means one thing for today. We have got some quality conditions for landscape photography and I've got a little bit of a walk planned, a little bit of a micro hike, let's call it. So I'd love for you to join me. Hopefully we can get some nice photographs. Whoa. So I had a really good sleep last night and a proper good chill in the van after yesterday's adventure. And I was thinking about just that, yesterday's photography adventure, and I got this photograph. I mean, it was yesterday for me, so you've probably seen it last week, but I don't even know if it's any good yet, that photograph. But I do feel that all of yesterday, my expectations were way too high. And, you know, even if that photograph came out all right, which I'm pretty doubtful, even if it came out all right, it was still a bit kind of like headless chickeny all day yesterday. And you know what? Sometimes I feel that I often preach or try to preach advice to other landscape photographers on this channel and I don't follow the advice myself, and I think yesterday was a really good example of that, man. Like, I just feel that having expectations that are too high, having pre-visualizations of photographs that you actually want to get before you even get there, a lot of the time these things can be really bad and really detrimental to your photography. And yesterday I think it definitely was for me, man. I think I was very narrow-minded. There was one photograph that I wanted to get, one type of photograph, and I think I ignored everything else, you know, which is strange. So all I'm going to do today is try my best to do the complete opposite. I've got no expectations off the bat, and I'm just, yeah, going to try and keep an open mind, photograph anything, don't take any photographs if I don't want to, I don't know, and, you know, just enjoy the day's adventure, relax, and see where the day takes us. As I'm sure you can agree, conditions are pretty ridiculously stunning. I'll just show you over my left shoulder there as well. You know, we're getting a lot of sunlight as well. We've got patches of blue sky and I guess it's tough. You know, there's a hell of a lot of texture and the sunlight is only adding to that. You know, there's a lot of contrast as well, but it's all part of the challenge of a landscape photographer. So let's see what the day holds. So as you can see, I've actually brought myself out into the open. I've actually come full circle. I'm not really that far from the road now. But yeah, the woodland, as nice as it was, I did mention, didn't I, regarding the textures and the high contrasts, it was just becoming too much of a challenge. The woodland was getting really dense and it was just a bit chaotic and messy. Whereas this, you could see a much simpler scene. here on the shores of the wonderful Loch, man. I've always wanted to get a photograph from these shores. And I just thought to myself, you know what? These conditions are so unique, at least to me. Let's try and make the most of them on the shores of this wonderful loch. So the uniqueness really, obviously the background, the snow-covered mountains, the snow-covered pine trees, but it's all about this foreground where we've got so many beautiful patterns in the ice. We've got some snow-covered rocks, and all I'm doing here is trying to create a little bit of a leading line, a little bit of interest in the foreground to take us out into that wonderful mountain backdrop. So I'll pop the Z7 view up on the screen here so you can see what I'm doing. And yeah, it's pretty simple. First thing that I will say is I will crop this image down into a 4x5 crop, so I'll bring it down from the top a little bit and up from the bottom. I just think it'll suit. But other than that, to be fair guys, it is very much one of these types of photographs that's just putting yourself in the right place at the right time. Obviously the rocks are taking us out into the scene, like I've said. The only other thing that I'd probably say is I am bracketing this photograph because I don't know if you could see, but look at the tops of the mountains. There are some real bright patches in the sky, and the last thing I want to do is overexpose them because there is a lot of gorgeous detail in those clouds, which again is helping towards this whole composition, towards this whole photograph. So yeah, I've always wanted to get a shot from the shores of Loch, and I do feel this is something a little bit unique. So I think I'm going to be happy with this one. Oh, just brighten it up a little bit. That's pretty dark. There we go. So I'm going to move on now a bit further, a bit further around the loch. And in particular, there's an area, I can see it off in the distance here, that's just, it is woodland, but it's a lot more sporadic, you know, sporadic trees, a little bit more space, room to maneuver, that sort of thing. Now, before I move on, I'd love to say another big thanks to today's video sponsor, which is Squarespace. If you don't know who Squarespace are, they're an all-in-one platform that you can use to build your own website, which is exactly what I did. My website is through Squarespace. It was through them before I was sponsored by them, and I'm really proud of my Squarespace website. I'll pop it up on the screen now for you to see it. They've got loads of templates to get you started. You needn't feel intimidated about the prospect of building your own website. With Squarespace, the biggest selling point for me is that it's just so easy. You can use all these templates to get yourself started. You could have your website up and running within a couple of hours. And then however long you want it to take, you know, you could start making that website your own. They've also got a load of e-commerce options and packages as well, which means that you can sell stuff through your website. You know, if you want to have more than a portfolio perhaps for your photographs, you might want to get to the point where you're selling prints like I do. You could do all of that through Squarespace as well. On top of all of that, they have got fantastic customer service as well. So if you hit one or two little speed bumps as you're creating your website, you can get in touch with them and they'll be there to help. So another massive thanks to them. If you'd like to give them a go to squarespace.com/Henry Turner. And be sure to use the offer code Henry Turner at checkout for 10% off your first purchase. That'll all be in the video description below. Right, I'm gonna make my way up there now to our little area of sporadic trees, and I've got the old jet boil, so I'll be having myself a little bit of a meal. So as I'm waiting for the old pasta bolognese to cook or rehydrate, I don't know what to call it, I've just been wandering around with the camera in hand, and you know what, it's been well nice because I honestly think it's given me a small bit of like clarity of mind or something, not to have the backpack on, not to have the tripod as well. And one thing that I've realised, probably over the past couple of days, you know, in last week's video as well, I think I've been working against the conditions a little bit, you know. And in this case, what I noticed is I've mentioned texture a lot, haven't I? And I've been seeing texture as evil all day. You know, there is a texture overload, to be fair, but you know, if you look at the ripples in the water, the texture through the trees, the clouds have got so much texture, the vegetation as it's peeking up through the snow, it's everywhere. Look, the tree trunks, and I think actually I need to be embracing that, you know, so that's my point, and that's what I'm trying to do here. First thing that I noticed here, you could see these like kind of I don't know, like sort of this area of windswept snow here on the surface of this ice. It looks really cool, and it's sort of sweeping round slightly from left to right, and that's what this whole composition is based around. That was the first thing that I noticed. Now I'm sort of playing around a little bit as well. I'll just pop it up on the screen so you can see. This is just obviously shot with the Z7. I will be cropping this as well to like a 4x5, but it's going to be something, I don't know, something along those lines. And again, I'm including this bush down here in the foreground just because there's so much texture and I'm trying to embrace it. So I've got to be careful where I place things. I even like these two trees up in the top left corner as well. I think it's given us a nice bit of balance. But yeah, something probably along those lines. But like I said, as a bit of a 4x5 crop. So same as when I was at Loch, crop down from the top, crop up from the bottom a little bit as well. But yeah, a really good use, I feel, of texture at the very least, even if it's a rubbish photograph. So right, I'm going to have my pasta bolognese, and I've actually found a potential for another photograph as well.
I also decided to grab a quick abstract photograph of the powdery snow atop the ice. I shot it as a monochrome and I was really happy with the way that it turned out.
So I really feel like that last photograph that I just got, the handheld one, I mean, it probably wasn't a great photograph, but it's given me a little bit of a creative boost. And once again here, I'm finding myself just trying to embrace these textures and the high contrast now with the sun out. But yeah, this is a wonderful landscape. And I tell you what as well, forget the photography for a second. This is just an absolute pleasure and a privilege. I think I used the term before with that last shot, clarity of mind. I'm feeling that in general, man. This is just so beautiful to be amongst. You might be able to see a few ripples on this little loch hand here, but I can't feel a breath of wind, and with the sun out as well. I'll tell you what, this is special. So this is a real complex composition. I just do not know if this is going to work at all, but I'm having a good time trying to figure it out. And you can see there, I suppose the main thing is there's just so many frigging subjects, so many trees. Starting from this one over on the far left, then of course the big trunk, another tree, and there's just so many throughout the frame, you know. And there's so much depth as well as the texture in this photograph. Now look, if I zoom in here even, look, you could see even that mountain over there in the centre of the frame, he is just getting bathed with sunlight every now and again. And like I say, yeah, just proper adding to the depth. Now, this is a very specific composition in the sense of it's taken me a long time to compose, or it's taken me a long time to figure out where the camera needs to be. It needs to be millimetre exact, and it's so that I've got all these small little gaps, see, in between each tree, little gap there, little gap there, and then we've got a couple of small little gaps at the edges of the frame as well. And then I've deliberately got this one branch hanging over the rest of the composition. So, you know, I've tried to think of it all, but like I said, I don't know if this is going to be a texture overload and way too complicated, but it's been a laugh. It's been a good little laugh. So I focused on this one tree trunk here that's quite close to us, and then I've just stopped down at f16, and I have been trying to wait for a little burst of light every now and again, because I don't know, I just think it's adding to the scene. I might regret that when I get it home, but in fact, to be more specific, what I'm waiting for is the moment when the sun just starts to go behind a cloud, and then it softens the light ever so slightly. But yeah, maybe a bit overcomplicated. Definitely texture galore, whether it's a good photograph or not, but a hell of a lot of fun to compose. So I am going to take a nice slow walk back to the van, and I'm assuming now I'm not going to be snowed in that spot anymore since the gritters have been out, and since, well, the snow's going to have melted a bit now, isn't it? But yeah, it's been a great little micro trip, chasing the yellow weather warnings as you do. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I'm struggling to get this exposure right because it's so bright now. And yeah, I appreciate your support as always, and I shall see you on the next adventure. Out!